Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about Robert Kiyosaki versus Dave Ramsey. Which one is right about using debt? Before we get started, if you enjoy these videos and want to help us make more, please press the like button. Subscribe to our channel and press that bell for notifications so you know when we release new videos. Now let's get started. Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey are probably two of the biggest names in personal finance today. But they have almost polar opposite views on financing and investing. For those not familiar with these two, Robert Kiyosaki is the author of the best-selling book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which he has now turned into a series of books and a brand of educational games and media. Dave Ramsey is a best-selling author, a nationally syndicated radio host, and the owner of Ramsey Solutions, an educational company that sells personal finance training programs. Robert Kiyosaki became famous for teaching such unconventional notions as your home is not an asset. And here's how he defines an asset and liabilities. He says an asset is anything that puts money into your pocket every month, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket every month. He also believes you should never say you cannot afford something. That is a poor man's attitude. Instead, ask yourself, how can you afford it? These unusual concepts are what made him popular and helped him take the personal finance world by storm. His philosophy on debt is that it should only be used to finance assets like rental properties, not liabilities like cars, boats, and as he calls them, doodads. He believes that a key to investing is to leverage your assets to maximize your ability to purchase more assets, which on some level makes sense because you can grow your investment portfolio much quicker. But this is not without risk. Some of Robert Kiyosaki's sayings and other philosophies. The rich don't work for money, they have money work for them. It's okay to make a mistake because you learn from it. Schools don't teach you about money. Financial education is about debt and taxes. Saving money will not make you rich. Don't go to school, get a job, save money, and invest in a diversified portfolio. Most poor people confuse liabilities with assets. There are three kinds of income: earned, portfolio, and passive. Now, Dave Ramsey believes in getting out of debt as quickly as possible and never financing anything other than your home, and only then for 15 years using a simple fixed rate mortgage loan. He also teaches that you should live below your means, use a budget, save for major purchases like a car, and only buy investments with cash. This is obviously a much more conservative approach. Dave Ramsey is more of a process guy. He uses fewer platitudes and generalizations and offers his 7 baby steps as a step-by-step way to get out of debt and start building a path to wealth. Here are the 7 baby steps. Baby step 1, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Baby step 2, pay off all your debt except for your house using the debt snowball. Baby step 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Baby step 4, invest 15% of your household income in retirement. Baby step 5, save for your children's college fund. Baby step 6, pay off your home early. Baby step 7, build wealth and give. These 7 baby steps are part of a larger program that Dave Ramsey teaches called Financial Peace University, or FPU. FPU is a 9-week course that integrates entertaining videos, class discussion, and small group activities. The course is designed to teach financial literacy, but its primary goal is to help participants become debt-free. Dave markets his course and materials mainly to churches and schools, where they usually buy the materials and have volunteers teach the course. You can find many churches around the country that offer the FPU course. You can also choose to take the course as a home online self-study course. What I learned from Dave Ramsey and FPU. Last year, During the pandemic, our church offered everyone the opportunity to go through Financial Peace University. My wife and I decided to sign up and take the course. As I was interested in seeing what the full course entailed, I've listened to his radio program for years, so I was somewhat familiar with his philosophy and his material. I've also had several friends that have taken the course, and all of them had highly recommended it. The course was pretty much what I expected. Not surprisingly, it is heavily concentrated on getting out of debt. This part wasn't very useful to me because we really have little to no debt. We don't carry credit card balances, and other than a vehicle loan and a mortgage, we have no debt. My rental properties pay for my truck, and I did a video on that, and you can go to the link here to see that video, or I'll put a link in the description as well on how I use rental properties to pay for my vehicle. And my mortgage is at such a low interest rate, and it's a short-term loan anyway, it's going to pay off in a few years. I don't really want to pay it off early. It makes more sense for me to keep my money. We only use one credit card for our expenses and pay it off every month, so we're pretty good shape as far as debt goes. While anyone can take the course, it seems to be geared more towards couples. Our class was full of couples taking the course together. This is where I felt like the course was really helpful. It showed my wife and I how to get on the same page financially. We've been married for 21 years, and in our family, I've always been the one who handles our finances. So I pretty much know how much we spend and the total ins and outs of our finances. My wife, on the other hand, usually had no idea about our finances and really left everything to me. This often led to arguments over spending. The course did help us communicate better about our finances, and I think it helped us realize our financial roles in the family. I'm the saver, the fun killer, as my wife says, and she is the spender, the fun maker. And that's pretty common in most families. You have usually one who's a spender and one who's a saver. I now understand that she needs to have the freedom to allocate some of our money towards vacations and fun things. She now understands that I'm fine with vacations and fun stuff as long as it's planned, accounted for in the budget, and we stay within our budget. Now, the FPU course comes with a 1-year free subscription to the premium version of everydollar.com. This is the budgeting app, and using the app to track our spending helped my wife see how quickly her spending was adding up, and it allowed her to control it better. I believe Dave and Robert both have valid points in their messages. That being said, I don't agree with everything that either one of them says. When it comes to the use of debt, I kind of fall somewhere in between. I'm fairly conservative, so I lean more towards Dave Ramsey on the side of having little to no debt. But I haven't always felt this way. I used to believe more like Kiyosaki, that borrowing money to start a business or to buy real estate was a good way to use leverage and to get ahead financially. What changed my mind? Well, that was the 2007 housing crash. From 2007 to 2008, during the housing crash, I watched many people who were overly leveraged lose all their investments. At the same time, I knew people who had no debt and cash in the bank. These were the ones who made a fortune during the downturn by buying deeply discounted properties. This made me realize that debt definitely is a double-edged sword. When used carefully, it can greatly speed up your wealth building efforts. But if not used properly, it can destroy you financially. Where I start to slightly disagree with Dave Ramsey is on using debit cards instead of credit cards. Dave says you have the exact same protections with a Visa or MasterCard logo debit card as the credit card. Well, technically, yes, you do. In the event of fraud, they will refund or reimburse you for any unauthorized purchases. But in reality, you don't have the same protection because of the difference in the way debit cards and credit cards work. Let me explain. When you use a debit card, the money has to be in your account for the transaction to be approved, and the amount that is charged is removed immediately from your account. This is not how it works with the credit card. When an amount is charged to your credit card, as long as you haven't gone over your credit limit, the transaction will be approved. There's nothing taken out of your bank account. Then at the end of your billing cycle, you receive a bill for all the charges that were accrued during the month. If you pay that bill in full, by the due date, there's no interest charged to your account. What has happened to me on more than one occasion is that I have had charges show up on my account with me still holding the credit card in my wallet. I've had to dispute the charges, and I once even had to sign an affidavit swearing the charges were not mine. Those charges were removed, and because of the delayed billing, I never paid a penny. If you use a debit card, the money comes out instantly, which means any fraudulent charges could also drain your account. Then your card would be declined. Also, it could cause other payments drawn on your checking account to be declined or returned non-sufficient funds. If you do what Dave suggests, which is to cut up all your credit cards and have only one debit card, you could be in a rough spot if your debit card is compromised and you don't have any cash or credit cards with you. You could be stranded out somewhere trying to buy gas or food and your card get declined. Fraudulent charges are more difficult to straighten out with a debit card because the money has to be returned to your account to make you whole. With a credit card, the situation can be fixed with a simple phone call and no money out of pocket. Lessons I've learned from Robert Kiyosaki. The first time I ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki was when I came across him on a late night infomercial. He was selling his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I watched for a few minutes and thought, this guy's kind of interesting. Several months later, I was in a bookstore and I picked up a copy of his latest book at the time. It was a quick read and it really challenged my thinking about some of the things that I was doing. At the time, I owned a retail computer store and I always thought the key to being wealthy was owning your own business. But what Robert Kiyosaki pointed out was that there are two kinds of business owners. In his book, Cash Flow Quadrant, he says the S is for small business or self-employed, and B is for big business. The small business or self-employed are businesses with few or no employees other than the owner. Or it can be a professional in private practice like a doctor or a lawyer. These businesses cannot run without the proprietor. A B or big business is a business that can run independently of the owner. Growing up, I had friends and relatives who were wealthy, and most of them gained their wealth through business ownership. So I equated business ownership with wealth. And this is why, until I read his book, I thought of myself as a business owner trying to build wealth by starting a business. But in reality, I was only self-employed. I realized what I really owned was a job. I built and repaired computer systems. I had a retail store with set hours that I had to operate within 6 days a week. I wasn't free to come and go. I was tied to my store. I couldn't easily expand my business. I would have had a hard time finding someone for minimum wage, which is all I could afford to pay someone, that would have the years of experience, the skills, or the knowledge that I had, and the ability to do my job. I couldn't walk away from my business and have it run without me. Think about a doctor and his own private practice. He may make a lot of money, but he can't just hire someone off the street to do his job. If he doesn't work, he doesn't make money. The same for me. I couldn't afford to replace myself with an employee because financially it just didn't make sense. Though I find Kiyosaki's lessons to be more inspirational than instructional, I still think there are some thought-provoking ideas in his books. Where I agree with Robert Kiyosaki is that I don't have a problem using debt to pay for income-producing assets. I have done this myself many times, but I do not believe in being heavily leveraged. Some investors build their portfolio by borrowing money to buy a property, only putting a small amount down and then using a little cash to fix up the property. After they completed the renovations, they rent the property, and then in a few months they have it reappraised with the intentions of doing a cash out refinance. This is where you can take the equity out of a property and use that cash to purchase the next property. This is sometimes called the BRRRR Method. That stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. This works well until you have a market downturn. Because you're moving equity from the first property onto the next one, you become heavily, if not 100% leveraged in those earlier properties. And in a downturn, this can be a house of cards. While I have personally refinanced properties to lower interest rates and to improve my cash flow by extending out the payments again, I do not cash out my equity. In fact, the last time I refinanced a property was several years ago, and I lowered my interest rate and actually shortened the loan term from 30 years to 15 years. My payment only went up maybe a few $100s. I currently own 19 rental units, and all of them are completely paid off. Most of them I've paid cash for, and that's what I would prefer. But there have been times when a good deal comes along and my cash is tied up in other investments. And on those occasions, I have used short-term financing to purchase a few of my properties. The more I've thought about which one has the better advice when it comes to debt, I've come to the conclusion that it depends on your level of financial education and maturity. If you have little to no financial education, then I would recommend that you start with Dave Ramsey. People who are not financially educated often don't understand how money really works, and typically don't do well managing their finances and tend to get in trouble with credit cards and consumer debt. If you're one of these people, or if you're young and just starting out, Dave Ramsey teaches you how to budget, how to get out of debt, how to stay out of debt, and these are good things to know. Budgeting your money and having no debt allows you to save more money. Money that can be used to purchase property for cash or used as a down payment on a property. You really should understand the basics of finance like budgeting and saving money before you begin investing. If you have little or no consumer debt and consider yourself to be more financially savvy, you may want to follow Kiyosaki's philosophy of using good debt to finance income-producing assets. This requires you have a knowledge of how to properly use debt and to have disciplined control of your finances and spending. Using leverage can definitely speed up the wealth building process, but it comes with more risk. Just be careful not to get overly leveraged. I think both these men have taught me some important financial and business lessons. While each has his own perspective on financial matters, it's good to hear both sides. I don't agree with everything they teach, but there's useful information to glean from both of them. I recommend reading their books and following them on social media. I think you'll find their information useful. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button. And if you'd like to see more, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications so you know when we release new videos. And if you'd like more information on real estate investing, go to retirerichwithrealestate.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Price, teaching you how to retire rich with real estate.